All right, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Mont Vernon School Board, April 7th at 6:01. We're at the Mont Vernon Village School. We're going to rearrange our agenda just a little bit this evening. We're going to open with public comment, and then there's some comments from the board. Then we'll have a brief non-public, and then we'll resume our normal agenda. So I'm going to be running the agenda until after that non-public when we elect our board officers. So with that, I'd like to offer any public comment that the public might have. No need to come to any podium. You can say where you are, but please identify your name and your town of residence. You'll have 3 minutes.
First. All right. Good evening. My name is Stephen O'Keefe. I'm a resident of Mont Vernon.
You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
3 minutes. Obviously, I didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye to everyone last time, so I wanted to take an opportunity, leave off the way I started Mont Vernon with my family here. Couldn't have the kids, but at least my wife's here. This has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve this community with the people over here. I don't take that lightly because when you take a look at what we've accomplished over the last 5 years, we came in and Sarah and I, obviously on the board at the time, we saw that there were some severe and significant challenges that the educators up here were actually facing. Increasing budgets, having significant issues with some parent problems, and really trying to find our way and mapping it out and working with the educational professionals inside this building and this institution was so profoundly rewarding to me, and allowing me into that world and into that universe to play a part in my kids' education like no other way. So I thank everybody here for that experience. You know, Christina Anderson, obviously my kids were in your class, and all the other great people and professionals that actually work here. To the people on this board, George, you're joining probably one of the top school boards in the entire state of New Hampshire. The collaboration that everyone is here, the respect, the mutual admiration, and true appreciation of everyone's efforts is second to none. And I think you'll realize that probably within the first month. And that goes a really, really long way. And I think that's lost in a lot of areas in society today. And I want to recognize the superintendent, Mr. Steele. Here comes Mr. Ackoff.
I don't have a hall pass.
Can I get that minute back? I want to recognize Mr. Steele, right? So he came in as business administrator, and I was sharing with Jess a picture of me being sworn in for the school board way back 5 years ago, and there's my kids and you swearing me in, and now it's like it's ingrained in me. And you played a very important role in the success up here. I thank you for that partnership, the collaboration, and really the openness that you've had to ideas from people like us to say, how can we make this place better? And that goes to really the core of why Mont Vernon is successful. It's because we really truly believe in the mission here. We believe in the goals of providing the best educational experience to our kids, to our community, and really making this place great to be one of the top schools in the entire state of New Hampshire. So kudos to you guys. I pass the torch to George. He's probably the best finance guy that you could ever happen or have on this board. So I really look forward to watching you guys, and I serve as a resource in case you ever need it. But thank you for the experience. And I look forward to collaborating with you guys going forward. So thank you. My Mont and pencils. I will pass them out. So everyone gets one to take home, and then the future chairperson is going to get some. So George, you can have 2.
I thought it was.
I know. There's 2 for you, and then we got Pete here. So you guys can put these on your desk and say, one of the best school boards. Pass the torch. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Good luck. Thanks, guys.
We've got a little something for you before you sit down.
It's been a busy week for me.
We don't have pencils for you. We have a little something for you that we hope reminds you of your time here.
Thank you.
Because it has been extremely impactful, and certainly we will miss you on this board, but know that you will do very good work down the hill representing our town down in Amherst. And I'm getting misty. I don't get misty very often. But Mr. O'Keefe, this is a little something for you.
Thanks.
One something a little fun, and one something to remind you of here.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much for your time.
I appreciate it.
and your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, what is this? Oh, I heard about these things. Thank you. I can't share it. It's top secret. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great night. We'll see my wife out here. She's at the school board meeting. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks to me.
Thank you.
He was,
John Prescott, I also live in Mont Vernon.
He was 1 minute over, but I'll give you the full 3 minutes.
I only need 2. It really is the last meeting I was at. It was, we were still masked up, so you didn't get a chance to see a lot of expressions and things. And I have a 5-year-old who attends here, and so I have to say, like, there's a huge expression of gratitude that my household wants to express to all of you. You know, I had the opportunity to hear about how a lot of the studies, the testing that had been done on the students who were out of classrooms for so long. Here at this school, we're testing at the highest level in the state. And I've had a chance to see that live out in my house with my 5-year-old, and just the progress that she's made here when she started in September to now is just extraordinary. That she's not only from the perspective of her learning, but just good citizenship type of things. And so there's a lot of gratitude that my house has, my home has here. And Mr. Steele, I think you represent a lot more of the community than maybe you even realize, with your values and your beliefs and everything else. So a lot of thanks for you too. So,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Anyone else for public comment?
Less than 2 minutes.
Very well done. You can keep going, though. Want to say more next time? Anybody, me in particular? So with that said, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A, subsection 2, 3, subsection A and C.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Ms. Lawrence. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Eckhoff. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Eckhoff?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Lawrence, yes.
Hinckley, yes.
Floor is yours.
All right, we are in non-public. I'll ask members of the public to excuse themselves for a little bit. Not sure how long this will be, but we'll let you know when we resume public session. All right, we're back in public session at 6:47. We have some member of the public here that we'd like to move up on the agenda for the benefit of him and perhaps even his family. So our auditor from Plonsick and Sanderson, Mr. Mike Campo is here. Mike?
All right, I do it from right here?
Please.
All right, great. I'll quickly run through the audit and I'll take any questions you have. In general, a really good product at the end. We had one comment related to the treasurer that I've already been informed has been addressed and will be approved going forward. So if you look at pages 1 and 2, which is your opinion letter, a lot of words on those pages. Essentially, at the end of the day, what it says is you guys did everything you should have done. You complied with all reporting requirements, and in addition, that we were able to conclude that when we looked at the financials provided to us, they were fairly stated in all material respects, and that's what we're looking for. Now I'm going to have you jump to page 14. What this represents is basically a summary of how your general fund performed over the year. Budget to actual, you'll see an original and final column on the budget, which is very common. A lot of times you'll see cases where the school district has accepted gifts, grants, and donations above what was initially approved at the annual meeting. Or you will have cases where your budget, you voted to move budget from one function to another. Ultimately, during the year, you started with about $350,000 of unassigned fund balance. You then end the year with $326,492. The real driving factor behind that was when you look at your appropriation section under expenditures in the middle, you saved about $320,000 through. You came in under budget there, which over the past year we're seeing is happening a lot between savings in transportation, food service, and other areas. The surplus this year is not unexpected. So now I'm going to have you just go to page 41, 42, and 43. All that is what I just shared with you on page 14, just in more detail. It goes into more detail on the functions. You can see how your budget performed against actual activity. And then if you go to page 43, which is just a breakdown of your fund balance, it shows you how you started the year, how you applied existing fund balance from the prior year, and then you also utilize through Executive Order 38 additional fund balance to help offset some expenditures. And again, you come to the 326,492. With that, I can go into more detail or I can field questions. I'm well aware that the audit is not the most exciting part of any school board meeting or town council meeting, so
We disagree.
you're not offending me in any way, shape, or form. Long and short of it is, you guys have a very good business staff. They do a good job. The numbers that they're providing to you can be relied on, in my professional opinion. I know that I do a lot of these. I think we're over 215 governmental audits a year. This is one of the finest business departments that I deal with on an annual basis. And please don't think I go into every one of these meetings and say that. I do not. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow morning with one of the other side of the spectrum. So it's a pleasure working with a group like you have. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm
Questions
all
from
yours.
I'll give everyone an opportunity first, because I have a couple for you, if you don't mind.
Mr. Torres.
Okay, so, thank you for that, and I don't do this for every district, I just happen to see you at Souhegan, and now I'm a member of the Mount Vernon board, so I do apologize. if I'm
No,
not
that's
confused.
fine.
Just real quick, just one of the things I noticed was there was an issue on the timeliness of deposits. Was
Yes.
that more related to a internal control issue, or just something that just one off?
General best practice is that the deposit should be made at a minimum of a week, every week if they should go in. And it's not even a case of a real threat of money being stolen or anything like that, because most of the money you receive is going to be in check form. So it's more difficult for an individual to cash a check that's made out to a school district in their own personal account. The concern becomes, one, you're not collecting interest on that money being in the bank. Two, what happens if it falls between a crack or it just gets misplaced? It doesn't make it in there. You have now bad accounting for the money should be in there. You can't reconcile it. So we didn't actually detect anything that we felt was improper. What we're saying is, from a policy standpoint, if your policy says you should be depositing a minimum of weekly, you should follow your policy. And best practices suggest that.
Was that the
That's
treasurer's, was that the treasurer's note in the comments?
That's a treasurer's note, yeah.
And that, as Mike stated, that has been addressed with the treasurer.
Thank you. I'll skip over that. The only question I had was, let me go to this one, because I actually made copies of it and the pages aren't lining up. So one thing I noticed though, in the summary net position, which is on page 5, when I look at the, and it could be something I'm missing, when I looked at the roll forward from on page 6, where we ended at a negative 1,249,000, when you carried that over to page 5, it was 1,229,000. So I was wondering what that difference was, because typically you're just rolling forward the balance from the prior year, and it didn't on those 2 pages. So,
Mr. Lucklider, can you answer that, or would you like the auditors to?
Well, it's funny. I thought the English in this packet was really good. Staying out in the hallway for a few minutes, found out that former student of mine. Back in the day.
Oh, wow.
I started teaching when I was 11. Yeah, so Mr. Campo, I will turn it over to you.
I will have to get back to you on that. I actually, that's part of the MD&A, the management discussion
Yeah,
analysis. I
okay.
don't have that.
yeah, and I went through and nothing jumped out at me. Again, just a minor thing, just to
Yeah.
kind of, I'm used to GAP as opposed to, I had to brush up on my, GASB. And I think that.
I will tell you that for the government-wide financial statements, if you look at page 32, we did have prior period adjustments.
Okay,
And part of that was that there was some confusion with a grant that was funded in 21 and the expenditure was in a different year. So this was that entry is there to help correct it.
yeah, I did see that. The thing that threw me off was because both of them said they were restated. So I thought it would flow through on the restated amount and it didn't. I was coming from a different amount, but it just, not a major deal. And I think that is all I have. So, thank you.
Any other questions for our auditor?
I understood like none of those words.
Oh.
So I have notes for myself to Google later.
Oh, just, any recommendations? I know you had glowing reviews and,
Keep doing what you're
anything
doing. There's always new reporting standards coming up.
Yep.
We're coming up with at least one this next time around that we're still trying to get our head around.
Yeah, which for us is ASC 842. so,
Yeah, so I mean, you're gonna see those leases start to find their way into the financial statements if you have it.
But they shouldn't have material. I
They
actually,
should not,
yeah,
they should not, some of the bigger districts, I think you'll see that they do. Particularly, I know there's one district where they actually rent their district office, it's a lease.
yeah. Now you
You'll
gotta
see
set it
that
on
in the
balance
financial
sheet.
statements, but not applicable for you.
I actually have to give testimony on that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, about 3 weeks, so looking forward to it. But thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
All right, thank you, guys. Very good.
Thank you.
And then next, I know we're delaying board organization, but Ms. Anderson's here to make a presentation, so we'd like to get her.
Ms. Anderson has to be up early to pop popcorn.
I do. Exciting.
Can I just tee this up quick?
Please do,
So,
Mr. Lockhart.
very briefly, but I want to thank Christina. In general this year, with some transitioning grade 6, Christina has taken on a lot of leadership, overseeing the year for these students and making sure that things end well for our 6th graders this year, and has done a great job doing that. So thank you for that, Christina. Tonight, though, we're talking about math, and Christina said, hey, I have some hands-on activity. I want to demonstrate some of the instruction she's been doing with our students. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you. So one of the things that I start every math class with is called a number talk. You may have heard of these. So there's a wide variety of research that speaks to the importance of using these number talks. And they're meant to be these short, brief moments, flickers of inspiring conversation for students. And the whole purpose is to get that conversation started, to maybe review skills that are being taught in the classroom. And it's also just really a great way to engage kids in the start of in math class, to get them like super excited for it. So I have been using this year a variety of number talk strategies. One of the ones that the kids have been really enjoying is called Test the Mysteries. And couldn't connect to the TV. So I'm going to read the clues to you. Normally the clues will be up on the screen for the students. They can review and look back at them. But I couldn't connect. So we're doing the best I can. Does anyone need a pen? Oh, it's a highlighter. Anyone need a highlighter?
I love that.
Thank you. Sure. Oh, no. Don't worry. It's okay. It's all right.
Be confident in that.
Okay. So I have this jar. Well, kind of a jar, a little flower vase is what it was originally was. Filled with some marbles. Normally I'll have a picture up on the screen, so they don't necessarily get like a 3D view of it. But I did this one because the kids are always blown away with how many things are in the vase. So feel surprised, I think. We start with the questions: how many objects are in the vase? So in this case, they're marbles. We look at a series of clues. For this case, there are 5 clues that are going to review some skills that we do in 6th grade. And as the clues appear, you're going to use your hundreds charts to narrow down your guesses. So I'm going to have you start right away. Your guys are going to be 6th graders today. And just put like a little star in the corner of the box with a number that you think is how many marbles there are in this vase. Walk around, I'll let you see it a little bit. How many marbles you think are in here? A little star next to it. So I'm going to begin. The first clue is going to be that the answer is a 2-digit number that is greater than 30.
Hmm.
So students will typically go around and they'll cross off the things that eliminates. And we have a good discussion about this. Greater than 30, well, does that include 30? No, it doesn't, because it's not greater than or equal to 30, it's greater than 30. So it does not include 30, your answer cannot be 30. It also is a 2-digit number, so what else does that eliminate? 100. It's not 100. A little bit of discussion of that. Some kids, they want to change their answer. Usually at this point in the year, they know it's typically more than 30. You can usually see it's more than 30. So at this point, no one's really changed their answer. Clue number 2. This is maybe a hard one for some of you too. The answer is not a prime number.
Hmm.
So we now can have a discussion. Well, what is a prime number? What makes a number prime? How can we tell in our hundreds charts here what numbers are prime? And this one usually requires a little bit more thought because maybe they have an idea of some of the ones. We know automatically you can like keep any number that is even. The answer is not a prime number, so even numbers are good. You can keep those. Then they might start filtering through some of those odd numbers. Okay, well, 31, is there anything that can go into 31 other than 1 in itself? They start to have that discussion. No, so 31 is prime, so we're gonna eliminate that. So at that point, the kids are crossing off numbers, and it might look something like this. 71 is crossed off. I'll give you the answer if you want.
No.
All right, we'll give you a
I'm trying to
second.
do my primes. I'm not gonna.
This is like throwback. Like, what is a prime number? Only divisible by 1 in itself. Sorry, yeah, sorry. I should have done science. I was gonna talk about ecology school, but I haven't gone yet. To get math. All right, so at this point, so I'm not keeping you guys here all night. 31 should be eliminated, 37, 41, 43, 47, 53, 59, 61, 71, 73, 79, 83, 89, and 97. We might have another discussion. Well, all of the prime numbers are in this column, this column, this column, or this column. Why none of those? Why not these ones are the 5s? So you see, well, obviously even numbers, 5s, anything that's with 5 and 0, pretty much guaranteed you're good. 0, by 10. The next clue for you, a little bit more math. The answer is divisible by 3.
Ooh.
So at this point, they've been crossing things out. You maybe want to start circling the things that are left. It might be easier at that point. Let me discuss, well, how do we know if something is divisible by 3?
Share the trick.
What's the trick?
Add up the digits. If you added up digits are divisible by 3, then the whole number is.
Yeah. Oh. Can you give an example of a hard, like what's a hard
So
one?
18, 1 + 8 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3. Boom.
All right. Look at you.
Hey.
Any other tricks?
The star student.
Same with 9. Works the same way with 9. If digits are divisible by 9, we add them up. And it's
That's it. 6 is somehow related. Anybody know how to do the divisibility rule of 6? Some are really.
add up the digits and it's divisible by 3 and 2.
Yes.
Right? Is that it?
Good job. This is why he's superintendent, right?
That is not why I'm superintendent. Useless skill in the superintendent game. Trust me.
Just the BA days.
You should start to see a pattern. Circling numbers or crossing things out. The ones that are left follow a sort of pattern. And that pattern, if you notice it, makes it easier to start crossing things off and circling things. Oh, see it? I see it. I got that part. All right.
My math is very good.
Yeah, you should start to see. I color coded mine just to make it easier. All my greens are the ones that are left. So they make these lines across the hundreds charts. We might talk about, well, why is that? Kids will say lots of different things, why they think that's the case. Anybody need to change their guess at this point? All right, you need to change your guess. Oh, start with something new or put a little star next to something new. Anybody still have their original guess? All right.
But I don't think it's right.
Stick with it, you know. Next one does not eliminate a whole lot, luckily, so not going to be sitting here all night. Clue number 4, the answer is not a square number. 6th grade, we talk a lot about square numbers, cubes. So we have to review what's a square number. What's the definition of a square number? What are square numbers useful for? Out of the numbers you have left, there are only 2, I believe, assuming I did my math right. That should be eliminated at this point. Yeah, you got it.
I do statistics, I don't do this.
My
My brain has rejected everything that's not that.
I'm not.
Figure out dosages and that is it.
32 milligrams.
You can convert those milligrams to ounces real quick though.
Yes, I can.
All right, if you need to change your guess, change your guess. I'm gonna move on because I want you to get rid of there. Last clue. Oh, this is another good 6th grade skill that comes up all the time in 6th grade, so it's super important to keep refreshing it. The answer is a multiple, might be 2 skills actually. It is a multiple of the greatest common factor of 45 and 60. So
You're gonna make me boil.
there you go, you can do it. You can do it. So greatest common factor, what are they both divisible by? 45 and 60. And then it is a multiple of that.
15.
There you go, 15. They are both divisible by 5, but it's not the greatest. So we can have that discussion too. What are all the multiples? All the factors.
I
think
have
I
this
bingo.
visual issue and I'm getting cautious.
Bingo.
Yeah. I'm gonna fail.
I'm gonna listen instead. The last clue, I'm already. Holly would be a chance of winner.
Oh, and he always, he's gotten it like dead on several times. Okay, so if you need to change your guess, at this point, there's only 4 numbers left. I think there's 45, 60, 75, and 90. And for those kids who do need maybe a little bit more support, I also have the hundreds chart that's up on the board for them. That eliminates as we go. So that would normally be there. That magic screen not working. So if you need to change your guess, change your guess. So then you do a little vote. You can do a little turn and talk as well, but I'm not going to bore you with that tonight. But we would discuss, well, what is your final guess? Why do you think that is? What indicates here that it is what you think it is? And then we reveal it, and the kids party and scream when they think they're right. So raise your hand if you think it's 45 marbles. Okay, raise your hand if you think 60. All right, 75. Anyone for 90? All right, and then we do the big reveal, and we go through the reveal, and we do it dramatically, and there are 90 marbles in there. Lose their minds. Every time. Every time. They always, they've learned that it's always more than you think it is.
I demand a recount.
Myself. You can tell me.
85 is my.
You're sprinkling a little bit of volume.
Yeah, a little volume. Well, okay, well, what's the volume?
That's fun.
Yeah, we start
I
that.
started at 75, I was glad it was still there. You started at 75, I did, 75 was my start.
That was her year
Whenever it
wrong.
takes you, you always say it takes you 5 minutes, it takes you 50.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Really good. That's a really smart, like, multi-layered
Really
activity,
good.
having to use recall, I love that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to contextualize too, so as you know, math has been a focus at the school for a number of years now. And really, you know, we talk about algorithms and more the traditional way of looking at math versus really having that number sense and that application and really being able to apply it. And Christina's at the end of the, the end of the road here, K-6, but we've seen amazing growth over the course of the year across all of our grades with math, and really due to the work of the math teachers, but also Charlene Brown is a huge cheerleader for that application and that number sense and just that excitement for math, because it really is a phobia for some students in building that confidence from an early age. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you find that doing these exercises sometimes tips you off to children who are struggling with concepts
Absolutely.
so that you can
Absolutely.
address them maybe away, aside and say, hey,
Yep, absolutely. So especially that opportunity when the clue comes up and you can see exactly who is like maybe sitting there thinking it over, maybe they're asking a partner, whoever's sitting next to them at the table. So you definitely have the opportunity to see, and then I can pull them aside during class if it's appropriate at that moment. We also have the wait time, and I can work with them.
I'll have to come and see you. I was 45 off, so.
It's pretty normal to see it.
All right, thank you for that. Moving back to our second agenda item, I know we've been all over the place a little bit. We're going to, third agenda item, election of board chair. And so I'm happy to have held the gavel this long. This is the longest I've ever held it in a school board organizational meeting. Thank you for that. So now the way we'll handle this process is I'll take any nominations from the floor from board members for people willing to be chair. After all nominations are received, maximum of 5 total. I'll ask those people who have been nominated if they're willing to serve in the role. And for those who are willing to serve, we'll hold a vote. If there's more than one, whoever has the most votes will be elected as chair. If there's only one, then I'll accept a motion and a second for that one person who's nominated, and then we'll take a vote. So I'll open the floor. Are there any nominations for chair of the Mont Vernon School Board? Ms. Hinckley,
I nominate Sarah Lawrence.
are there any other nominations?
I was gonna second it. Is that allowed or not?
I'll leave the floor open for several minutes to make sure there are no other nominations at all, but hearing none, I'll close nominations. Ms. Lawrence, are you willing to serve in this role?
I am willing to serve in this role.
All right. I will accept a motion to elect Ms. Lawrence as chair of the Mont Vernon School Board.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Same? Did you vote?
I voted for myself.
Okay.
Confident.
The motion carries unanimously, and I will turn the floor over to Chairman Lawrence.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your votes. I appreciate it. So our next order of business is to accept nominations for our vice chair. Do we have any nominations for our vice chair? Jessica Hingley? Any other nominations for vice chair? I would nominate Mr. Eckhoff. Would both of you agree to serve if you are? Sure. Sure. Okay, so we do need to call a vote. Mr. Eckhoff?
for Jess.
Both would be lovely, but I did nominate you, Jessica, so.
This is a hard one.
Can we alternate meetings?
You could alternate meetings. I would,
As chair, you can vote last.
okay,
This
let me
is a
do
typical
that.
process.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm gonna vote for Steve.
Okay. Okay,
Was that me now?
that's you. Make this hard for me.
Well, she's closer to me, so I'm gonna vote for her.
So that's 3 for Ms. Hinckley. I'll vote Mr. Eckhoff. So 2 votes for Mr. Eckhoff. And is it 2 votes for Mr. Eckhoff? Yeah. And 3 votes for Ms. Hinckley. Ms. Hinckley, would you accept the position this year? I would. Congratulations. Mr. Eckhoff just needs you to step up on our committee work.
Secretary?
Yeah, so our secretary nomination is up next. Do we have nominations for secretary? Which now you can't do.
I can't do.
Who would you like to nominate?
Kristen, I'll nominate you.
Thank you. I was gonna nominate Mr. Echo.
Any other nominations? Okay, so we have a nomination for Ms. Clark and a nomination for Mr. Echo. So we need to go ahead and roll through that vote. I'll start with you this time.
Well, this time I go with her.
Kristen.
I'll vote Kristen. You're welcome. Mr. Echo.
Well, vote for Kristen.
Ms. Clark, would you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So welcome to our secretary position.
I'll off the next ones for you.
Sure,
Please.
thank you.
Town Budget Committee.
Anyone feeling particularly drawn to the budget committee?
We nominate people.
This is, at this
In the
point,
past, we just,
volunteer.
yeah. Thank you, Mr. Torres.
School Budget Committee.
I do, can I ask a clarification?
Of course.
I would prefer, I do not know which committees Mr. Glover is on, but I would prefer not to be assigned to those committees. So if there are specific ones that are not within that criteria, I would prefer that position.
The School Budget Committee is is for the Mont Vernon School District only.
And the policy committee is the committee that I know that Mr. Glover is a party of. I don't know about other committee assignments, unfortunately. Do you happen to know?
I can,
Do you want me to pull up
Please,
the Duncan one?
so School Budget Committee, we can still assign while we're.
Anyone feeling called?
I've been on it, so right, yeah, so.
Thank you.
SAU Budget Committee, which is the Mont Vernon representative to the SAU Budget Committee.
Good times. I can do that. Or are you feeling called to that?
I just was gonna ask what the time commitment to something.
Yeah.
like that is.
Couple of weeks.
It's less.
It's not
Yeah.
too bad. But yeah, deep dive into the SE budget, putting some questions into the budget sheet and a couple of meetings.
I'd be willing to do it. I mean, it's George's wheelhouse, so I'm not putting it on you. I'm just saying that that's you.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the time of everything else. So
And I
It's
just,
my least favorite thing, so if someone else
I would
wants to do it,
do
I'm
that
open
in
to.
lieu of policy committee.
Okay,
and I'm also willing if just meeting that criteria, and obviously the policy committee is not.
I think you're fine. So SAU Budget Committee and School Budget Committee are both back off. Manifest, two members.
I've been doing it and I'm happy to keep doing it.
I've been doing it too. Pete, you've done it.
Yeah.
It is great to be able to see what you know, what we're doing, and it's quick and easy on, online, if anyone's interested in looking at
It's quick and
that.
easy on the man.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
It's weekly, but
I think you would actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
So Hinckley and Torres, is that who that was?
I'm willing to do that one if Mr. Torres would not like to commit to another one I haven't committed.
What's
to
the
yet.
time commitment?
It's,
really hot.
that's fine, I'm back, that's right.
Sorry.
So, no,
Clark and Hinckley? I'm putting it in the fellow board today.
Okay, I just, Katie likes to know immediately.
Immediately. So Clark and
I already
Hinckley.
got my email today.
Yeah. I was gonna say I did too.
RSEC is not needed this year. This is Ms. Lawrence, so we're a little bit able to take it off. PTA,
I'll do it, since I still,
Joint Facilities Advisory.
I have offered to support them in the capacity of working on engagement. So if that is something that I could silo off, then I would be happy to support them in that work.
and I can take the meetings and
Committee
if you,
second.
yeah,
Got it.
share the room.
Policy Committee, 2 members.
I'll do that one. That is a passion of mine,
Lawrence and Hinckley.
unless I did anyone. Okay.
Transportation Committee, which typically does not have hardly any responsibilities.
I'm interested.
Hancock and Torres. Only need one. Which one of you? All right, NHSBA. School Board Association, which I think is 1 meeting a year.
Yeah, it was fine. It was, yeah, like a couple hours once a year. I'm happy to do it again if no one is interested, because it is interesting.
So what is it?
It's supposed to be on a Saturday too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the New Hampshire School Board Association. They have like a delegates meeting once a year.
If you don't want to do
No,
it.
it's fine, yeah.
So it's good for a new member.
Comfort.
It was
Okay, I'm up there.
okay. Last year it was virtual, so I don't know. It'll be.
So who is it?
Torres.
And then the last one is NBEA negotiation reps, even though this is not a negotiation year, it's always good to have 2 people that are the.
I- Wouldn't mind doing it with someone that's done it before, since you know me, Pete.
Yeah, this past year was my first year, so.
Yeah, I
Not an
wanna-
expert by any means, but.
Is that okay? Sarah?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Pete and I, it was a good process. I thought it was very collegial and we learned a lot.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good one. Okay,
All right, I believe those are all the assignments.
thank you.
So the notifications for these parts, when they're being held, or where they're being held. How do I?
So Abby actually will coordinate that and contact her for solve.
Thank you.
And I would be interested in JFAX, not to steal your thunder, but
Mhm.
if there's a need for more representation as they requested last night.
Okay.
I would be willing and interested to participate in that process, but I don't know.
Well, I'm happy to start off the process and see what the time commitment is, and then we can all kind of
Okay.
talk about it. I think we're
That's fine.
loosely
Yeah.
able to coordinate that. So yeah, and I'd be open to that too. I don't know that it's a time
You know,
commitment I
again,
can
maybe we
commit
just-
to depending on what they need. So, yeah, we may need to rotate through that.
Yeah, I think there's different opportunities for how we can support them, so
Yeah.
it would make sense.
Perfect.
There are a lot of subcommittees that will be engaged as well, so that'll
Yeah, I don't
share the wealth.
I'm sorry. I don't, it was mentioned last night that I don't think we need a separate buildings and grounds committee here.
Obviously, yeah.
If we're all kind of plugged into the conversation.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
This building is in fantastic shape. We have a good plan and all of that.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your willingness to step up. It's always nice. Okay, we've done the audit presentation. We are down to our consent agenda approval. Did anyone have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda to discuss, or can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items 1 through 8?
I'll motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Pete, second. Any discussion on any of these items?
The winter growth report, no, I was gonna just have talk to it a little bit.
Yeah,
Just
for
see.
sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So math, you can see across the board, in all grade levels, we met our target growth, which is really exciting. What's exciting about that too is that we're piloting math materials this year. So, there's always a little bit of, worry that with new materials, will students not perform as well and make as much growth? So it was really positive that even with new materials, that were a little different for teachers, you have to get used to those materials, but we recognized also that we have such strong math teachers. They've received so much training and also so much support from Charlene. Those materials really just enhanced the work that they were already doing, and they felt they really matched what the teachers had been really trained in and how they had been teaching. So that's a really great positive. So we're really excited about that. And then in looking at reading, we were surprised they weren't as strong, but what we're hearing now, the biggest concern when we went remote over, almost 2 years ago, I guess, at this point, right? Yeah, just over 2 years ago. We went remote. The biggest concern was really around math. And then now a lot of that switched, and the biggest concern has really been around those early grades and reading for students. So we see a little bit of that in this performance, and it's pretty consistent with what we're seeing down the hill as well at Clark Wilkins. Second grade students were kindergartners when we went remote, and we think that had a pretty significant impact on them because they were just starting to learn those building blocks and those basics of reading. So we're seeing a little bit of that lack of growth in second grade. We've also seen that our second grade students in general have, because they left kindergarten partway through, it was really not even just the academics, it was more so the social and emotional skills. And I was just reading an interesting article last night about how those two just go hand in hand. So we really need to focus on both, equally the social emotional piece as well as some of those skill building pieces. The nice thing about reading is that if there are holes and gaps, once you fill them, kids can zoom ahead. With math, if you develop holes and gaps, you have to go back, fill in that hole and gap, or gap, and then move forward, because that conceptual understanding isn't built properly. If you don't with reading, often you can go back, fill in a hole, and then speed ahead. So I think that, we're still certainly working in some of those lower grades to make sure that we're filling in any of those holes or gaps that may have developed over time. And there is also a piece, that oral language piece ties in with it. And that is challenging. We needed masks to protect our students and our teachers, but they do impact oral language development because you just can't see and hear as well. So with all those pieces, we weren't shocked with some of the slightly lower performance. And again, it's still strong, but it's not always what we're seeing in reading. And we're a little surprised by fourth grade, and we're working directly with the fourth grade teacher and really digging into those scores even at an individual level as well for those students to ensure that they're making growth there. So Tom and I have been working on that piece.
Can I just
So,
piggyback?
yeah.
So this was part of my report, but I wanted to, one of the focuses when I look at our district mission around, individualizing and personalizing, one of the parts of that process was we took the data, we took each grade level, and we literally did an exercise where we went through every single student and looked at their performance, math, reading. Maggie Holm and Charlene Brown are interventionists, and they both, they have students that hit a threshold and they'll service them a certain number of days or sessions or what have you. We kind of like revamped their entire schedule from that point to the rest of the quarter. And, we call that tier 2. So these are not students who are identified, but might not be making the growth or might fall a little bit under the bar of the threshold. And so in some cases, it may be frequency. We want to provide more frequency. In some ways, we may want to look at, what are the strategies that these students are receiving? And if it's not working, then we need to look at a different approach to that. And so in some cases, it was that. And then in some cases, it was students that are doing really well, that have had that support. And so then we can tear back a little bit. And so it was a really healthy and worthwhile exercise. And, you know, I'm optimistic as we move through the spring. And they get not only those tier 2 supports, some of these students that fell below the threshold, but also the tier 1, the classroom teachers are very much involved in this. And one example in grade 2 was, we said, you know what? She is providing individual support to students, but we could be doing more push in. And so Ms. Home has actually been providing more push in support to the whole class in grade 2. So those are just some examples of some things that come out of analyzing some of these results, and certainly, you know, it's nice to have that mid-year data point.
Yeah, check in to make those tweaks and changes that we needed to. So it's been really helpful for us to review this and to dig in, and Maggie and Charlene are great at really, you know, they can't wait to get the new results. They're sending me messages before I can even pull the district report, which is wonderful that they're, you know, so open to really examining and tweaking and changing and providing the support needed. We do test students in the spring again on NWEA for K2, but the 3rd through 6th grade, since they're taking New Hampshire SAS, we don't retest them with NWEA. So we will have our spring results as well for K2. Great.
So when would be the next time we see updated results?
Yeah, fall, for all K6 fall, and we'll be able to see, I usually do fall to fall. So we look, which I know seems really far away, but the New Hampshire SAS results do let us know whether students are meeting grade level expectations or not. So that data is really helpful, and we'll probably have that June time period for students, and again, June for the NWEA results. So we'll definitely have some results in June, and then in the fall by October, we'll have really, it really gives you a glimpse of this entire school year, because we look at fall to fall growth.
So our hope would be that in the fall, that the results from grades 3 and 5 would close the gaps that we're seeing in grades 2 and 4.
Exactly. Yes, and we do need to look at that next grade level to see that growth.
And my last question would be, are we communicating this to the parents that there's a gap and encourage their kids to read more at home or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so we send the NWEA results home pretty quickly to families. And then also progress report time, you know, usually is around that same time period. So teachers work to make sure that they work very hard on their comments and provide very extensive comments about how students are doing. And I think those two things together really help to paint a clear picture of student progress for families. And, you know, certainly one of the things we were focusing on this year is reading. And I know Maggie's been working really closely with Patty. I don't know if you saw even just the bulletin board right outside here shares all of our teachers' favorite books. So we've been doing a lot on school-wide literacy, because we saw the positive impact we had with math, and really focusing on just that love of math across, you know, the school, and how much that impacted our students positively. We had our houses, and the students really we were doing special events every late start around math. So this year we've really tried to focus on literacy. We have Bookopoly. That bulletin board actually shows Bookopoly, their little and Tom, I don't know if it was more of a competition or really just
A little bit of both.
yeah, but really focused on literacy and on reading. So that has been an area that we've really tried to enhance this year, because we know it was so successful with that.
One of the, if I could,
Yeah.
one of the things too, through I've reported out on MTSS, which is multi-tier supports for students, and it's a multi-pronged process, but our specialists are involved, Maggie and Charlene, classroom teachers involved, but there's a referral process to MTSS. This is not a special ed referral process. It's a tiered process where we say, okay, the student is exhibiting achievement data that is below the threshold. And for us, typically it's right around 60%, the 60th percentile, which is amazing. That's a high bar. And then we will look as a team, and the family is part of that process. So having them engaged in that. So, you know, we have a student in the 43rd percentile, for example. We will have a conversation at the grade level, and And like I say, if the intervention is not showing us growth, then we might look deeper or switch some of the strategies we're using. So the family is involved in that conversation along the way.
About facilities, I do have a request from a 9-year-old resident in the community that the upper grades bathroom door locks be looked at. So I don't know if that's on the horizon, but that was a resident's request. Very emphatically, since she has a direct line to her mother.
I had a question.
Yeah, please.
In looking at the NESREC,
NASDAQ,
sorry,
yeah.
thank you.
enrollment.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. I do see some growth out there, so the first thing that hit me was, okay, are we able to absorb that growth in the current footprint? That's the first thing, but I don't even mean, and I guess I already know the answer, but when I mean absorb the growth, yeah, you can kind of squeeze them in the classroom, but what is the optimal,
Mhm.
ideal, because knowing what I know from Sauhegan and their issues with their labs, yeah, you can squeeze them in there, but that's not
It
necessarily.
can impact.
Yeah, so that's the first thing that jumped out at me. And then that drove me to, well, when was the last time you did facility study? I think I brought it up during the interview, it was like 2013. So are we looking to update that and get in caboodle? So
And jump in, Christine can certainly as well. So right now, one of the biggest reasons Mont Vernon Village School is faring so well academically and the results we're seeing is our very small class
Right, yes.
size. And so certainly we have room for more kids in our classes, but that would also be a compromise from what I think our community's expectation is for us. 6 years ago, we had some grade levels that only had one teacher, and there were 20 kids in those classrooms. And we saw those results being quite different, both in terms of behaviors and so a couple of years ago, we invested in making sure every grade level had 2 teachers. And so while there is a little bit of headroom right now to absorb some more students in a lot of our classrooms, eventually I think this board and this community would have to have a conversation about, are our class sizes becoming too large? And if that's the case, this building is not big enough to handle, there just aren't other classrooms. We couldn't have a 3rd classroom in every grade level in this current building, in the current configuration.
And that's kind of what I expected. Obviously, that's something that probably has to be communicated sooner than later and repeatedly. Because as we're seeing now, doesn't pass on the first try, probably won't pass on the second try, usually takes a number of attempts, and I think we need to start laying that groundwork fast and furious.
2 more things I would add. So first, in terms of the facility study, we really have a very strong understanding of this facility and what will need to be addressed in the next 10 to 15 years. There's very few things left. We're doing some things this summer with our ducting, our HVAC systems. The fire alarm system at some point is coming down the pipe, and that's sort of a larger thing. We thought we were going to have to look at adding a sprinkler system to the building. We don't, as long as we maintain the exterior doors to every classroom during the winter. This building doesn't require a sprinkler system until and unless we do a significant renovation or addition to the building, in which case it would require a sprinkler system. We just did the roof. So everything else in this building is in good shape, and there's no major things coming down the pike for the next 15 to 20 years that we know about. With that said, if this community, for whatever, either for the middle school study committee or because of potential future expansion because of what might be rising enrollments, what's worked in this community is having a plan way out in the future that we save money for every year in anticipation of, instead of waiting till the moment of and saying we need to borrow money before we then start buying things. So I would suggest, I know I'm not going to be here for it, but I would suggest if that's a concern anywhere into the future, that probably in conjunction with the middle school study committee, there also might be an enrollment and building committee that looks at, should we start putting additional funds away in the event that we have a future facilities need down the road.
And I was very surprised by the enrollment projections and a little nervous. This building was built, I think, for 260 students, but that's 260 students, I don't know, 15 years or 20 years ago, whenever we had the last edition put on. At that time period, we have a lot more small group instruction that's happening now for students, where we really have almost a strain on our spaces. We're pretty much at capacity. We could absorb a few more students in each classroom, but I think then there could be ripple effect, you know, depending on the specific needs of those students. Steve Chamberlain shared with us that when he had the NESDEC projections done in his district, the longer he was with NESDEC and they did their projections, the more precise that they got. So this is our first projections that they've done for us. So I'm really curious as to like what next year's might look like. And I think that might be a helpful point to really say like a line in the sand if these are still projecting high. And then, you know, if you have a committee and just looking at land in the community, how many lots and spaces, you know, just what's anticipated down the road for building could also be a helpful piece as well.
And that was gonna be my question, is how accurate is this
Yeah, I think
based off of the information?
I agree with Steve. I think I mentioned it last night too, with the SAU meeting. In my previous districts, NESDEC enrollment projections get more accurate with time.
Okay.
So this would likely be the least accurate, not to say it's not accurate, but the least accurate, and will grow in accuracy over time.
So I take it, there
Technically growing
isn't, what I'm hearing, there isn't a requirement to do an updated facility study, but one of the things I suggest is if it finds that, you know, we may be looking at, maybe pursuing, looking at something like that, we probably should couple that with, you know, the findings here, because really, that's really the leading indicator. That's really what's driving this. It's not just us telling you, when you look, you know, one of the things we do is every 10 years, we're required to do a depreciation study. And it's not something that it's optional, we need to do it. And why is that? Well, for obvious reasons, the projections 10 years ago don't technically apply now. So that's something I think we're further simplification. So just something to think about.
And something that I remember we had the issue with the water system, and that's not currently on our plan for major projects. And I imagine that will at some point be a major project. Was there any discussion as like where in the timeline of existence that is going to be concerned?
Yeah, I'll double check with Roger. That's not gonna rise to the level, in my opinion, of what we're doing with all of our air ducts this summer. It's gonna be an order of magnitude below that. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I think what we talked about when we all toured that room
Yeah.
is like in the magnitude of like 15 to 30,000, not like
Okay.
100 grand.
Okay. And I just was wondering like what the scale was for before we really needed to like include it in that timeline.
George, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was gonna be one of my flags, was looking at the projection. I mean, what I call it the tipping point probably is year 2030. When the grades 5 and 6 are at 88.
Yeah, and the thing is, you want to get out ahead of it.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to wait until,
But quick
okay,
math,
it's been
you're
2 years.
22 for the 4, so that, I mean, we've got some runway, but it's not a lot. And so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and fiscally, that's something you need to start selling right away, because you mentally, they need to start being prepared for that.
The other tipping point that is difficult to talk about is buildings have classroom capacity and also core capacity. So core capacity is the size of our library, the size of our bathrooms, the size of our cafeteria, which is fixed in size of our kitchen, et cetera. So we would also have to look at in a space needs study, is our core facility, could it even accept additional classrooms within this building? Because just because we have room to tack them on the end or put them somewhere doesn't mean that our library, our cafeteria, our nurses space, or et cetera, is big.
And the question is, in regards to Roger's report, he did such an awesome job, but is that posted on our website of what he's actually doing on a monthly basis with the pictures? Because I think that just tells the story. I mean, this is what we're doing week in and week out, and this is why the building is in the shape it is. It's projects that he and his staff take care of.
Well, and we talk about transparency and being open with the
Exactly.
community. I agree. And I mean, his reports are exceptional.
So I don't know whether they are being posted somewhere.
It's in the packet, but
They're in the packet, but we can look at that.
yeah, that'd be great to post them on the website. This is monthly facility reports.
Yep.
He was horrified with the boiler breaching that they cleaned before we found that. So he's constantly finding those kinds of things and making them better.
Yeah, I mean, he's out in front of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Exceptional.
I can return the favor. Thank you for bringing that up, the website, because one of the things I wanted to ask is, when I was doing my research here, I was actually trying to look up the budgets, historical budgets. And I ended up finding it, but they were buried in the town reports. Is there any way, I mean, I think me as a recent, addition to the Mount Vernon community, more accessible way where I can look at those reports, because I think that really, you really want to build confidence within the community that, hey, we're really maintaining, and, this is an asset to the community. And now, from a maintenance perspective, from a budgetary perspective as well, if you look at, you can see what the increases have been over the last couple of years. That really builds in transparency and builds the confidence, make it a little bit easier for them. I mean, I did find it. I was like, man, I wish it was, because we had everything else that we had meeting minutes and all this stuff. Why can't we have like the last 3 to 5 year budgets and people, hey, look, yeah, we're being, responsible and prudent with our.
Sounds like that would be a great board goal,
Like it.
which we'll transition to shortly, but I like that. And I think adding that in and
Yeah.
making sure that things are easily
Yeah.
accessible and available, I think it's really good.
Yeah, because it really cuts off and one of the things I'm seeing from Salhegan, and I think we're certainly avoiding, I think, many of those mistakes in the short time here. We want to be able to say, hey, okay, it's there for you. You don't have to come in. I mean, we recommend you come in these meetings, but the information's there if you can't make it.
So Christine, what was the number you quoted a bit ago when this was built? 265?
That's what I believe the middle school study committee had shared. I think it was 260. I could be a tiny bit off, but that was the number. But with that, supposedly the building was built for 260. But as Adam said,
Yeah.
I don't think the
Pete King
nurse's
would be
office
the-
could
Right.
handle 260.
Pete King is the one who knows that stuff cold.
Mhm.
Any other questions on that report or anything else in the consent agenda? No, okay. So we did have a first and a second to accept the consent agenda. We had our discussion. So can I have, are we ready to accept the consent agenda items 1 through 8? All in favor? Thank you. And thank you for the clarification on those items. Appreciate it. Okay. We are up to our preliminary board goal discussion. So George, thank you for the nice segue. There is a Trello card, and what I'd like to propose to the board this evening is that we take a look at that Trello card. George will make sure that we get you tagged on there, but take a look at that and review it, and then be prepared to come back to our meeting next month. If you have any suggestions, revisions, anything like that, and if you'd like to email me in the meantime, I can pull that together, or you can make notes on the card, and we can go about it that way. I think that will be the best use of our time, since we all haven't had a chance to review them. And George, since it would be the first time you're seeing them, that feels okay?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And I'll add that, your suggestion about making things more accessible. I think that's a great thing to include for sure. Unless anybody else had anything to discuss on the board goals this evening, you okay? Okay, thank you. So we are up to our principals report.
All right, thank you. Happy April. It's been a couple months, so the report is pretty jam-packed. Adam told me to keep this under 2 hours, so start from the very top and we'll work our way down.
That was the wrong now. So minutes was the.
So I did want to just, again, as I have been, just highlight our 3 main areas of focus, which is SEL, personalization, and community, and just sort of speak to a couple of highlights in each of those areas over the last couple of months. So I'll start with community. We had a bingo night and it was very successful. Thank you to our PTA. It was a lot of fun. We had many a winner, and Monty actually made an appearance. Monty, our mascot, is now live and in person, and a couple of appearances actually over the last couple of months, but that was fun. Also, in terms of community, we've been doing a lot with responsibility and kindness. Actually, kindness was back in February, real focus. We now have source slips that we are recognizing students for. Well, it was others first back in February, and now it's responsible citizenship as we go through March and April. And we have our SOAR board out there. You might have seen it when you walked in. And so we are recognizing students with the slips. We announce their names. We talk about what they're doing and how they're engaging in our community and helping our climate here at the school. So that's been a lot of fun. As far as personalization, I did talk about the MTSS process, the analysis of our data. So I'm going to leave it at that there. And as far as SEL, real exciting. I put some photos in the report. We have a sensory zone down the hall. You might have seen it when you came in. Probably tempted to do the crab walk or the bear crawl. Feel free. But I want to thank our special services department. Thank our OT, Amanda, who did a great job sort of coordinating this. And basically, a sensory zone is it's an area for students. It really could be any student, but particularly students who might need a little bit of an outlet or something to calm themselves or just sort of get the wiggles out sometimes. And the sensory zone has multiple ways to do that. Everything from physical things to more just like sensory kind of things that they can touch or they can do things. We have a whiteboard wall paint. Chalkboard area, some things there. So it's been a dream for a while, came to fruition. And I think SEL is an area that we continue to talk about, area of continued focus. And so that was really exciting. I wanted to recognize, I know we had the vote back in March, but I did want to recognize the Dallin Library came in and worked with Miss Garrity on a project that became an exhibit in our NPR. That our town is all together, we're all part of the community, and students made paper houses. Those were put together, put on display, and it was fun. So on voting day, students were not in the NPR. The next day they came in and they saw a few of them had seen it, but saw their houses on there, and it's just really exciting, just a fun thing. So I want to thank the library, Dallin Library, and Patty for partnering on that. It was a great project, and we're going to find a way to keep that going, keep that in there. It's posted, or still up in there now. Those are the highlights. I know we're a little behind on our time, so if you have any questions. Yeah.
So Bogopoly's been going for a while. Are they still like just as enthused or?
Yeah, so it's a sustaining thing, you know. We are wrapping up Bogopoly, and actually, Ms. Brown and I just talked. We are going to bring in sort of an end of year now. We're kind of in that last phase, but we are going to do a little a math house mini, not quite as big as it was before COVID, but something mini with that. So we sort of like move into a new thing. But it's been successful. We do a raffle every Friday. We recognize the students, take pictures, and the kids have done great. Number of readers, number of books read. I have a kind of a tub in the office, and the stack of tickets in there, and the stack of students that have read multiple tickets and multiple books represented there. So it's been good. So yeah, thank you. It's been going on for a while, and we're wrapping up right now. Thank you to the PTA. Actually, they donated some gift cards for the big recognition at the end.
So luck letter, are you willing to get some purple pins with 5 stars on them, and when you get 5 books ready, you get a free personal pan pizza
Oh
at
my
Pizza
God.
Hut? Is that something you'd be willing to do? Hey, remember that? from
I lived
Book
for
It?
that, and
Is that
it's
the Book It
funny
program?
because my daughter is obsessed with Bogopoly,
Yeah.
and I'm like, look, it's a new generation.
It is. We used to, Friday night, we used to stick our Book It pins with Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Get that, Hinkley? You know what I'm talking about?
Let's
Really?
wait for it.
That was the thing with Pizza Hut.
Yes, yeah.
Pizza Hut had a book, they call it the Book It program.
No one would eat it. Pizza Hut.
Oh, Christine.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut hasn't
California
penetrated the New
too, we
Jersey
didn't
market
really
yet.
eat.
I would think
Michigan was the
Right.
No, I'll be down there Saturday. trust me, there's no pizza.
That was a
No
great Friday
franchise.
night. Pretty much the only reason I learned how to read, as far as I can tell.
Terrible pizza.
In Michigan, you didn't get picky. It was great.
Cincinnati, we're just happy to have a pizza.
We do have Read Across America coming in at the next week.
Yeah.
We're gonna be doing, we have readers from the community coming in. It'll be a school-wide event that morning. And Patty and Maggie are doing something each day. We're doing some spirited things around there.
It's an awesome event.
It is really,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited.
quick kindergarten classroom update.
Yeah, thank you. So when we came back from February break, the room was ready in terms of painted, floor was ready, rugs were ready to go. We are still waiting on the installation of some of the woodwork in there. So that's gonna take a little bit more time. And I imagine some of that'll happen before they actually bring it in and then install it. And then the cabinetry, there's still some insurance stuff going back and forth on some of that. But the cabinetry will be put back in there, and the plumbing and so forth still will need to be hooked up. So I know there's still some conversation with insurance on some of that. I'm not sure what the timeline is exactly.
We're working on it. We're working with our Primex representative.
Amy's an expert because of our many fire
Yes.
floods and damages we've had.
Unfortunately.
Did we have any luck with, I know Steve brought it up, that VAE down in Nashville has a free monthly donation of office supplies and office furniture and stuff. Were we able to tap into that at all? Do we know?
I'm not aware of
I'm
that.
not aware of that. That's how Porter got all these lovely red chairs.
I do know there is a contact, and actually Miss Susie shared that with me. It was actually more related to our conference room. The furniture is pretty tired in there. We do have the VAE furniture that was given, but that's been a while and kind of.
Yeah, I just came up with the tall cabinets when we
Yeah, I
were
remember.
viewing it a couple of meetings ago. We said that
Yeah,
VAE
Mr.
does
O'Keefe.
something where they donate
I think he mentioned it to Roger,
to
so
Roger.
I'm sure it's on Roger's page somewhere.
Just wondering if Roger had any luck connected with it.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at too is transforming a little bit of the entry area. We have those couches out there. Those couches have been there for quite a while. They're a little tired. So we're trying to come up with something besides fabric type stuff. that, for a number of reasons could create some issues there. So,
They're really gross.
yeah, so that will be happening. Another exciting thing, actually, we're in terms of like some like tired areas that we want to dress up a little bit is the NPR. So we have some, I might have mentioned this, but we have quilts in there that are proud to the community, and want to keep those posted up there. Some of them are starting to rip off the rod, so we want to have those redone. But I've been working with Geskus, our photographer, on SOAR banners. So they've given us a quote, which may or may not become the PTA with that. It's actually very, very reasonable. SOAR, SOAR, a banner for each letter, and then our mascot, and then the Mont Vernon Village School logo, a banner, and probably a flag putting in there. So that's probably a summer thing, but something that we're looking at doing, kind of bring a little vibrancy back in there. So, yeah.
Make sure the homonym is correct. SOAR can also be SORE. That'd be too bad.
That would be rough.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Any questions for Tom this evening?
I love Monty's outfit. That came up great.
I know.
It does.
Came
It's
out great.
fabulous. It's fabulous. So shall we have you transition into our material request from specials?
Sure.
Would love to
Yeah.
hear about that.
Yeah, so first off, thank you. The board had requested a top 10 from our specials. And so we've had a number of meetings and with the specials team. We've looked at So we had a conversation about a number of items. Some of the items sort of like pulled into the budget. There are things that we felt that, you know, the budget supported and were areas of just sort of part of that process. And then other areas are, as you can see in our list, are areas that are some bigger ticket items, some things that have probably not been, or maybe have been, but maybe not been discussed in a meeting like this. So this is what we really narrowed in on, these 4 areas. And then the areas at the bottom are areas that we were able to meet that need through the budget process. Okay, so the biggest areas of need right now that we're looking at that are bigger ticket items are the cushions in the library. So back here, those are fairly old, and actually in the kindergarten room, they're not fabric, they're more of a plastic, so vinylish
Leather.
kind of a feel to it. It's a little more sanitary. So maybe something there, but some new cushions in the library. Was mentioned earlier was art tables, and those tables in there are very old. They've been repaired a number of times. The legs are bending. Our custodial staff has to go in there pretty regularly to make sure everything's safe in there. But they're definitely tired and old and in need of replacement. The kiln is currently in storage over here, and so we would like to assess it, the kiln, see what the functionality is, if it needs any repair. It's been a while since COVID. It's been sort of stored away, and then have that reconnected and start using the kiln more.
Roger already took a look at it. And, you know, he was pretty confident that we'd be able to move it and hook it up temporarily over the summer to its original location, just to ensure that it's working properly, because anytime you move a kiln, you risk, you know, damage to it. So while it's properly stored, we want to make sure it's fully operational. And then if it is, Roger would make a determination as to the best location for the kiln, and then spec up like how much those costs would be. So we really need to get through the summer where there's time to move the kiln, hook it up, and without students here, and really assess that. But it really would enhance the curriculum to have a kiln.
Yeah.
And then snowshoes. So
Clark Wilkins did this.
Clark Wilkins did this, and it was rave reviews from the community, from the students, teacher. So we would love to do this. You can see the breakdown there, but a great opportunity for students to be outside in the winter. And we do get some snow up here on the hills, so I think we'll make good use of that. Good use of, I know Amy, who's been in there this year, I talked to her about it. She was really excited about it, and I think it might have been discussed a little bit in the past, so.
And the PTA supported it down at Clark Wilkins, and they, since they have a smaller band, you know, just grades 1 through 4 they were purchasing for, it actually was not significantly more, even though we need less snowshoes here, we need that range of sizes for students. So we think that's a pretty appropriate estimate for what it would cost. And REI does provide schools a discount. We just weren't sure if, you know, after an unassigned fund balance discussion, we want to be looking at this as a budget item for possible purchase, or whether we would want to work with the PTA or even get it in stages, you know, a grade band a year or something like that.
And like a sponsor a snowshoe
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
event or family event. Yeah. Partially. There's my creativity. You're welcome. No, that's great. It's a great list. And I know we'll kind of get to talk about this when we start talking about the our next item, the UFB. So we kind of pull that in, but definitely appreciate seeing the needs here. I love seeing that, you know, some of these things are able to be handled in the current budget. That's fabulous. I mean, really, that specialist presentation was just a highlight for me in my school board career. It was a stunning presentation. I wish everybody would rewatch that. It was so good. Made me feel so good about what's happening here. So excited for the kids' experience. Yeah, it's really great.
We do have a vendor coming in to give us a quote on the cushions next week.
Is there essentially like a prioritization, like ordering of like what is the most critical need? Is this kind of like the ordering?
So we didn't prioritize of these 4 items, we didn't do a prioritize of those. I mean, the kiln is something that's sort of, we already own the kiln. I would say that that's something we definitely want to put at a, since it's already something that we've invested in as a district. And the art tables, I think I would say that the art tables are number 1, because there is, I don't want to say a safety issue, we're addressing the safety issue on a day-to-day basis, but the amount of monitoring and making sure, and if you've been in that room, it's just, there's paint all over them, and they're just, they've done their time, so we're gonna get back to VAE. I don't think we can.
And I think the kiln and the snow cubes are probably equal. They're both, they're pieces that would really enhance our curriculum and our student experience. But again, the kiln, we can look at again next year. I just feel like we're not ready to make a change there. It doesn't mean it couldn't happen for next year. It could be on a break. It could get installed certainly. And it's just timing wise, Roger didn't feel we had enough time to move the kiln and set it up.
I want to give the board credit at this point for talking. Think how far we've come, where we're now talking about how to enhance the student experience with these things. It's really a good testament to this board and the work that we've all done over the past several years to get to this point. We have a strong crew now, a strong team, and the fact that we're looking for these enhancements these are the right kind of conversations. A pretty good moment for me is what I said. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the specials team was very thankful and appreciative for the conversation, reaching out to them. So, thank you.
Mr. Torres, I know you had a question then.
Yeah, just real quick, and Jessica and I chatted about this earlier. I would love to have a tour of this facility.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure all the stuff is, but I'd love to support all this, but I really want to look at it and see what you guys are dealing with. So if at some point you got some, I'd love to see that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we could do a board tour next month for part of the report, or maybe we could do that for part of the report, or maybe start the meeting with that.
Yeah, we've done board tours before, like to start the meeting off can kind of be a nice piece.
We've taken field trips.
Yeah.
To see different things.
I bet Amy would even be willing to provide the pizza for that night.
As long as it's not pizza.
Clark and I will get
Look,
Stuffed crust.
I will read the books to earn it, like I said.
Yeah, the only downside to doing that was the students aren't here. So you don't get the full experience,
Yeah.
but as a
But
first
as far as
kind of,
looking at the walls, the furniture and stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
We know how they got there.
You know
We know how they got there.
Come pop popcorn tomorrow, you can see it with.
Oh, my daughter, every day. There's always $2 missing from my wallet.
every Friday.
So this is something else I think we need to get out in front of our community, because I'm just looking at some of these items, and I gotta believe that there are people out there, if we phrase it right and present it right, that, I'll just use the art tables. Maybe there's 6 community families out there that would say, I'll sponsor a table. Write a check for $300, send it to Tom, drop whatever the mechanism is, and we maybe tackle some of these just out of the generosity of our community. We may have sources out there that know how to work on a kiln. Who knows? I mean, I just think somehow we've got to get this out so people know that these are the items that we're looking to do into estimated cost, and then somehow phrase it as, if you'd like to help donate, this is how you can do it.
I will make a suggestion along the same lines. It's important how you phrase that, because sometimes taxpayers can receive that as, did you see the tax bill I just wrote last week, and they can't afford to buy tables with that? And so you have to make sure that you couch it as, this is a tax avoidance opportunity. We're looking to not spend tax dollars on these things if there are community members. So I've seen in other places done the same thing. The feedback has been.
Yeah, but sometimes I hear what you're saying, but knowledge is power.
You just have to
And what
balance it,
people
right?
And what people don't realize is what really is included or not included in their taxes. When you see the state really, anyway, I don't want to get political, but anyway, people need to realize what's in their taxes and what isn't. So I hear you, but
Just phrase it the right way.
yeah.
Well, and I think it's also important to see what we are able to include in a budget and what we are not able to
Yeah.
include in a budget. And I mean, I would look at the tables if it's a safety issue or, you know, an age issue as something that we should be prioritizing in the budget for safety and student experience. And cushions, I mean, we could make the argument that a banquette is not safe. If somebody whacks their head on the side of the wood. I mean, I think we could make an argument for that to include it in the budget. But I think that looking at this in the way that we have shows that we are trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can be, and partner with our specialists to see what really are the needs, what can we do to help and support. So I think we have a pretty balanced approach, but I agree,
Yeah.
certainly transparency helps people to understand what we deal with.
I'm sure there's enough people in town to see some of this stuff like, they're sitting on that. Here's $100, you know,
right.
you won't even have to ask. Just invite my wife. Just invite my wife. She'll outfit you.
Like the bottom line, whiteboard easel.
I mean, yeah,
I love to go to yard sales. I mean, I've probably walked by 7 whiteboard easels maybe in the last 3 years. So it's little things like that that you never know.
Well, thank you very much, and thank the specialists for pulling together this list. It does
Thank
help
you.
us to be supportive, for sure.
Excellent.
That makes a great segue into our next topic, our unexpended fund balance. Can you lead us through that? Amy?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So you want to, everyone has that chart pulled up. So this is the Mont Vernon School District unassigned fund balance projection, relative early-ish projection as of the end of March, what we're looking in terms of revenues and expenditures to be left. So the chart is broken into 2 main areas, the revenues and expenditures. You'll see local, state, and federal, and then the use of the prior year fund balance. The total projection for revenues is 64,700. The majority of that is local, where there was a return of surplus from Health Trust. Jumping down to expenditures, good news here, we're projecting about $342,500 in expenditure unassigned fund balance as of now. Most of that is in the areas of regular ed and special ed. And regular ed, we had regular ed tuition projection less than budgeted coming in. We also had some savings due to a vacancy that was supported with a long-term sub. In special ed, we had savings in out-of-district and pre-K tuition and less of a need for special ed paras for students attending the Amherst School District. There was some health insurance savings in the principal's office, and in transportation, there was over budgeting that I haven't been able to figure out, but that happened. There may be some credits in that line that may not continue, so that could possibly be adjusted downward.
In the transportation line?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were also some savings in the non-union salary and benefit line due to some staffing changes. So the overall year-end fund balance, including the revenues and expenditures, is 407,200. So the district is in great shape.
so Amy, real quick.
Yeah.
So what's the delta in the building and grounds?
The building and grounds was,
It's about 52 grand. You know what that was?
yeah, that's the insurance claim that we have.
Ah.
Yeah, primarily, that hasn't come in yet.
So, okay, so, but that, is that inclusive of the deductible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So we expect it to net out.
So
Expect it to-
the number
that's why
is skinny up.
That's why we're showing a zero,
Yeah.
because we're expecting it.
Right.
We just haven't,
It's
We haven't
more of a
submitted the
timing
funds
variance.
yet.
It's not a permanent variance, it's a timing
Correct.
variance.
yeah,
Yep,
which
that's
is why
right.
it's a projection of zero.
Yeah, so actually that fund balance might go up.
Maybe, I mean, we're projecting
If
zero.
we're
right
in
now,
the- right,
just to,
right, yeah.
my finance director and.
You want to be
very
conservative. Yeah, you want to be conservative. Yeah. I
Yeah.
got it. I got
So
it.
the last thing we want to do is.
Yeah. You
Try to-
undersell.
Yeah,
Undersell.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But we're looking good so far. So we'll do an update for next month, and then a final for June. So you can make some decisions.
Thank you.
What's the number last year?
Try to anticipate every question. Anticipate it.
I'm just curious.
It's on there. It's on the
I think it's
24.
around three, in the threes, maybe?
That's right, like high twos, low threes.
I think so too.
Between 50,000 and 2 million. somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's close enough for you.
Is it
Close enough for government work.
Yeah. More conservative with our spending.
Yeah.
Give me a minute. I'll find it in the 24.
Oh,
And this one too.
who's gonna get there first?
So then as we look through at these potential projects on
Yes.
the list.
So there have been a couple of additions, but we can go through the projects that Roger and Brian have added to this list. And I'll also probably talk to you, Tom, a little bit more, and as you know, we have further discussions about those items that Tom just spoke about. We can potentially add those as well. But the first item is the replacement furniture, and if you, as you recall, that was pulled.
It was 357. We had 50 that went to go to the capital reserve fund.
Those are threes, that's right.
Is this including the 50 that was passed when to go into the capital reserves?
No, this would be prior to that.
This is
So 6,700 was pulled from the budget, and that was the phase one for replacing the aging furniture that was showing signs of wear and had some safety concerns. So that is the $6,700. The board also pulled 20,000 out of the technology budget. It's primarily for student and teacher laptops. The outdoor shed for grounds equipment, that's to replace the existing shed that is at end of life. And what's being proposed would be a bit larger for just be able to store more equipment. The electronic door access is for the remaining hall exterior doors. And the siding repairs, that's to repair damaged siding around the entire building. And the fin tube control, I had to ask Roger what that was. That is to complete the controls upgrade that was started with COVID funds. So the baseboard heater on the side of the wall is, the building is currently 65% complete. So this completion of this project would allow Roger to have everything running under his systems as opposed to just.
I'm looking at you with question and wonder because I don't know what you're talking about. It's not.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
not-
list.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was what was
So
added.
tell me what that is.
I'm so sorry.
Tell me what that is. We're all making eye
I
contact.
have,
What now?
I know, I'm sorry, I have an updated list.
That's okay.
So what you have is ends at the siding repair.
Yes,
I
yes. So
apologize.
what's the next one?
So this next one that Roger added days ago. You can see we're constantly
Yeah, I know.
working on this. So it's called a fin tube control upgrade. So so it's,
It finishes the project we started with COVID funds. It
Exactly.
controls all of our heaters.
yep. And
And what was
Adam
that?
explained it better. That cost is 40,000. So he received that quote a couple of days ago. And then he did also add an ADA ramp to modify the existing playground wall stairwell for ADA accessible. And that was brought up at the joint loss
It's a
committee.
concern.
Yeah, as a concern. So we don't have a quote on that yet, but he did want to add that as a possible item. So that's where we are. If there's specific questions, I can take them back to Roger and bring them back, but we'll keep this list updated and bring it back to you in May. But the idea is to have this presented to you so you can start to think about it and see what some of the costs are and where they shake out and be able to make some final decisions in June.
So without the ramp, you're probably looking at about 115,000 right now.
That's what I'm at now, 115.7. Yeah.
Do we have like a ballpark for the ramp?
I don't. He just, this just came up.
Yeah,
But he felt that it was something that we should add, and I wanted
Sounds
to make sure I brought it to your attention tonight.
I'd actually
We
put
just
it
did the
at the-
walkthrough.
I'd put it at the top of the list.
I would too.
So we'll do what we did last year, where we prioritized items.
Yeah, that would be
And then obviously let you all make the final decision, but we'll do some work ahead of time to have that.
Are there any items here that the board is clearly, no, don't worry about it, we don't want to do these? I mean, not that you need to approve anything tonight, but are there any obvious no's? It's okay if not. Just-
If you're like obvious yeses,
Mhm.
like siding repair, yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
The door access for safety. I
Well,
would
maybe
say.
not no completely, but like, say, furniture, $6,700. It's tough for your constituents to see furniture from outside of the building, whereas you were getting inside, no, I see that. So maybe split the baby and maybe take half of that, and dedicate it to furniture or something along those lines.
Can I ask a question about the heating system controls? So what is the current mismatch? Like what's the consequence of that? Like what's happening, you know?
Yeah, so Roger's able to control some of the building and other parts have to go down from the computer, like remotely, and monitor the building, see if there's hot spots or cold spots, and other spots he has to walk into every classroom and adjust thermostats. So,
Which is really, it's pretty sophisticated and pretty impressive. He did a demonstration at a meeting for us, and his ability to know what's happening at all times. He gets alarms on his, on his computer and probably on his phone. So he's able to quickly make adjustments in the moment, which ultimately saves money.
Could this
And
have
as an
saved
example,
the
I was just
kindergarten?
gonna say, as an example, we would have
room?
known that the kindergarten classroom was too cold prior to the pipes freezing.
So that being said, we've done the vulnerability studies. And what I mean by that is,
On the IT side,
yeah, the ability for someone to, for instance, I don't know if you guys may recall, but some outside international entity, not our system, but they access the system. I thought it was in North Carolina. And they were able to turn on and turn off some chemical feeds into the water system. Now,
I remember reading. it.
yeah. Now, when we looked at our system, we don't have the ability to access it from outside. It's a closed loop system. So basically what that means is someone actually has to be either in our water treatment plant or in a booster facility to actually at the booster station at that location. You can't access it outside. So in this instance, that's one thing that concerns me. If he has the ability to do remote access, he may not be able to do that. So it's just something that to think about.
Yeah.
To think about, because, yeah, I mean, it could be someone turns on a water pipe or meter and leaves it running. We know how much damage it can do. So just something we may want to consider at some point, where it could be in a facility study or something.
Those are the concerns. On the other end of things, in terms of the benefits, it's generally accepted that control systems usually pay for themselves within 5 years because of saved energy,
Okay. So, balance those two things.
if not sooner.
I don't imagine a foreign entity wanting to hack our systems, but maybe it's me for too much time on my hands. Be concerned.
Well, it's just, it's
Yeah.
the environment.
Totally.
It's the environment. I mean, who would have thought someone's gonna mess with the water utilities?
And I think I talked to Roger when we took the tour, and I'm not sure he did it based on my question, because I'm not an engineer. and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. But I think he put shut-offs for the water flow going into the kindergarten building. So his system would be able to tell that the water system is pumping, say, 300 gallons of water, and it should not be pumping 300.
Oh, that's good.
It would alarm him and shut it down. So whether that happened or not, but there's definite upside, so. I'm gonna go against you on the furniture piece, and I got it, but I was actually thinking, we should take the $1,800 for the art desk and put it into the 6,700. And whatever that number is, 8,500. I'll use my bus replacement theory. If you don't replace buses and you just drive them into the ground, all of a sudden you gotta buy 40 buses. So same thing with furniture. If every year we just kind of continually replace the worst furniture in here, we'll never.
And I agree, I wasn't insinuating we shouldn't do it, we should have like a run rate.
I'd rather spend $8,500 every year and keep everything fresh versus ignoring it for 10 years, then all of a sudden, we've got books underneath legs and stuff like that. So, that's all.
I was gonna suggest the same thing, say roll the furniture piece into that. I think that makes sense. I think sounds like it's a need. They're past their life, and if we're gonna evaluate furniture, why not evaluate furniture on the whole and make that decision? I think that makes sense. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'll make that adjustment next month.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks, our numbers are good.
Yeah.
It's nice to see.
Yeah.
It's nice to see it.
Pleased
We have
with
a lot
that.
of flexibility. Okay. let's see where we're at. We are.
It's great transition.
Thank you so much.
So I included our transition activity schedule in the packet for all of you, just to see the number of joint activities and transition events that are happening for our sixth grade students. I'll mention a few. We just had our Orleans Hannah math placement assessment just yesterday. Right?
Yesterday,
yes. It was fun. I got to be in the classrooms, and it's like, oh, I miss being a sixth grade teacher. So that went really well, and the kids, they were funny. One said that made our brains hurt, and then another one said that was so much fun. So it certainly is a range. It's an algebraic reasoning assessment, and kids are actually able to. It shows readiness for algebraic reasoning, and some kids are ready and some aren't. So the test is definitely very helpful for us as far as math placement. And our students always do really well in that math placement process. We've added a few things this year, counselor and teacher meeting that never really happened formally in the past before. So we're excited to make that a little bit more formal, where we'll have an informational meeting with the 2 sixth grade teachers, our school counselor, and the AMS counselor to really go through every single student and make sure that AMS is really ready to receive our students and has a strong background and knows what they can do, so students are really supported from the beginning. And some of the events that we typically do, like you'll see the AMS school play and request letters, the transition evening. One thing we've added to the transition evening is a student panel. We haven't had that in the past, and that was really something that we felt we've done kind of had that in some way in the past, but this is a little bit more formal, where we felt that former Mont Vernon students from the Mont Vernon Village School, I should say, current AMS students formerly attending Mont Vernon, sit on a panel and really share with students what it's like to transition and what things to expect, and just to help ease that transition, because we know it's hard. This is a small school and they're transitioning to a large school. One of the other challenges is 5th and 6th grade, we have the same setup here as we do at AMS, where you have 2 teachers and they're transitioning to 4 teachers. So they're making a double transition to 7th grade. And I think that's why it's often challenging. Not only are they transitioning to a big school, they're transitioning to 4 teachers, which is a big deal for students. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is just our ecology school. When students go to environmental camp, we have joint lessons there between the AMS students and the Mont Vernon students. They really are very integrated there, and we work hard to make sure that the students are really coming together. I know one of the pieces in the tuition agreement was that there'll be joint lessons between both Mont Vernon students and AMS students. That is already happening at environmental camp, but just really wanted feedback from the school board. Our sixth grade teachers brainstormed some different ideas that they could do to try to have some joint lessons, but some of the challenges, you know, whether students are going down there multiple times already, but with the joint lessons, we felt like it might be awkward for students to be on Zoom, that it doesn't quite lend itself. And then, you know, transitioning down and trying to integrate students, it happens naturally at a college school. Is there a need for additional, and we started brainstorming just some ideas in case we wanted to do more, but I wanted some more feedback from the board because it felt a little forced on our end from our teachers. They felt like, oh, they couldn't, they were coming up with ideas to kind of, you know, fit in to this model, this joint lesson. And they just weren't sure if it would feel natural for students where ecology school is natural for students. So that was just the feedback I was looking.
I think the intention was to have a connection point, you know, to have a touch point for our students to get to know some of those students. And I mean, I think we would trust the educators to be able to make the determination of how to do that. I wonder if it's not feeling natural, if there's a way that, you know, if each class or our class and a class, you know, down there was doing a similar activity and they could sort of share results or, you know, make it so that they could compare results, work together, work collaboratively, not necessarily in person, but, you know, to kind of have like a, you know, investigative reporters sharing their data. I don't know. I mean, but something creative like that where they could at least in their class feel that connection with their classmates from afar. I think we would trust that there's creativity happening there.
Yeah.
And I think that was the intent.
Is it for the students to connect, not necessarily for them to know another teacher at AMS? And we know they wouldn't get that. Was the intent just to more AMS student touch point connections?
For them to have some like feeling of ownership for the school. Like they
And
go,
familiarity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Instead of just going in blind, you know, they never have set foot in the school. You know, and if they feel like they know someone or, you know another student or know a teacher, I think that was the intention. So,
yeah.
What about like other, like ecology school is like a cool opportunity and like, and there's all these like other like Lego camps and STEM camps and stuff like that, that they are collaborative activities that are also like kind of lesson-based learning. But that doesn't have to be like throughout the semester, but what if it's like a special like day where that is like work collaboratively with these other teams from that school that they'd be integrating with? Like, would that be something feasible?
And they do have Shadow Day, which is, you know, that is them going down to AMS and really connecting with one student and shadowing that student for the full day and starting to get to know the teachers. And our teachers did brainstorm some different ideas and Steve and Bethany were working, you know, connecting just on getting some ideas from the AMS teachers on what might come together nicely. And there are a lot of projects that the students are doing, you know, both down the hill and here that we certainly could get them together. I just want a little more direction from the board. If the intent was really that student connection piece, I think that there is probably a more natural fit for that.
you know, what if you took the kids that they shadow on Shadow Day and connected them earlier? They're either almost like a pen pal or just, you know, some kind of communication where they could literally just have a few more touch points with that person. So it's not so choppy. And so like instantly, like here, you need to make friends now. But you give them a little bit more natural opportunity to sort of assimilate.
So to answer your question, it sounds like the social aspect is the most important piece,
I think
and
that's-
as opposed to the
intent
teachers,
was, really.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, is there something when they go down for the school play? Is there some way, I mean, and that would be potentially before ecology school?
It could, I'd have to double check on when they anticipate the date. We didn't have a date last time. When this went in the packet, the date wasn't ready.
Because if they could meet some of those kids before even the ecology school, maybe it would connect better there.
Yeah.
Would be an easier.
No, I like that idea. And maybe one connection when they go for the school play, And then maybe another one, you know, that might be more remote, but sharing information or ideas,
Right. Yes.
and more
To help
curriculum
them feel
connected.
connected, I think was our
Mhm.
intent, really.
That's helpful. Yeah, I felt like it was important for me to share what's already in the works and get some more feedback to better refine what we're doing. We were kind of almost thinking too big, and then we thought, wait, maybe this wasn't the intent. That's helpful.
I don't know that we wanted to make work for you, just
Yeah.
to improve the connection or to brainstorm ways to do that.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Questions about the transition piece? Difficulties with the change.
I like
They're from VA.
I like it's not just like schedule oriented, it's like fun activities and like really, it's like a really cool distribution of like orienting you to a system and a process, and like, here's also the fun things you can take part in, like, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that work, Christine, and thanks for the partnership. You know, please thank the sixth grade teachers down the hill and ours as well for that work. It's meaningful. Meaningful for sure. All right, friends, we are up to our discussion about continuing the middle school study committee. I think I'd just like to open it up and get a feel for number one, if we think this is necessary. I think our last discussion was that yes, we think that this is necessary to continue. So then the second piece would be, what does that continued charter look like? And what sort of time frame would we be looking at? I think those are the things that are on my radar. I'm happy to have you help flesh out what the rest of that looks like. I did pull up what the original charter was for that committee. So that committee, we asked to compromise a committee of 7 individuals with 1 board member who is non-voting, 1 faculty member to research the middle school options for the Mont Vernon Village School and for future participation with our tuition agreement, et cetera, to report back to the board with their recommendations. They've done that. So now the question is, where do we go from here? And that committee did provide their report. The report is all, for anyone who's catching this, not with us tonight or catching it on the replay, that report is available on the SAU website. There was no real determination as to what direction to go. There were certainly plenty of options to explore. So our charter now is to figure out what is the next step. So I'd love to hear from board members on your opinion on what that next step looks like, defining that committee and that committee's work. And I'd also be happy to entertain administrative support if you've got ideas or suggestions.
From my perspective, you've commissioned a committee, they've done their work and reported back to you. The ball's really in your court as a board to narrow the field about options you think are worth exploring, or to say, no, we've done our due diligence and we don't need to go further. So it's really your responsibility now to either say, here are the 1 or 2 options we want to continue exploring, or it's good we have this information, we can keep it in our back pocket and have it available to us for future use should the need arise. It really is your prerogative as a board.
Okay. So what was everyone's feeling on the findings from that committee?
So I will say I'm at a disadvantage because I have not seen the report, and secondly, I do have a hard stop in 15 minutes. I just got sorry.
That's okay.
I think that there was, and I need to refresh myself on the report because it's been a while. I think that I need to have a little more time to have a better informed opinion. I think an important piece of context is, do we have any major things we need to accomplish in order for to meet the next ballot? Like, is that something that we need to discuss in order to frame timeline and better focus the discussion?
So what we would need to be cognizant of is if we need to put anything on a warrant article, in terms of funding a study, going further with literally looking at what the options are from a financial perspective or a space perspective. That's my understanding of what would be next. So that is something that we would have to be aware of for a timeline. It sounds like what we're looking at as a reasonable option tonight is to like have some homework, to go back, review that report. George, that gives you the opportunity to review it. We can always connect and field questions. And then come back at our next meeting with a little bit more clear idea of if you have, a direction that you think is the preferred direction, if there's one that you think is an absolute no, maybe we can talk through that and then talk about what the next steps are. Does that seem?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Please.
Arno? So.
Yeah.
I guess was the aim, was there a concern solely on cost, or was it based on student experience, or like what is kind of the whole driver behind this? Because from my perspective, the first thing I look at is, okay, what's best for the student? The cost is important, I get it, but at the end of the day, this is what we're really all here for, just to make sure we provide the best school experience for our kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And given the financial constraints we have to work with, so. So you can kind of share some of that with me.
Yeah, so it first came up when we learned of the Amherst potential for building project,
Yep.
and the impact that is going to have on our community if it passes. So the first impetus was to say, we need to look at what that could mean for this community in terms of finances and in terms of what does that look like for our students? Because we do not have a voice on the Amherst School Board, as you know, even though we are together on the SAU board,
Right.
we don't have any control about what happens there. And so having our taxpayers have to pay into a system that we don't have a voice or choice in really is potentially a challenge.
It's taxation,
Right.
representation.
Right, so that's a challenge. And even though we feel collegial with our partners down in Amherst, we don't have that much of a say there. So that was one of the considerations. The other thing is looking at the experience here. We know that we have a real jewel here. And would it be a better experience for our students to go K-8 here, in a smaller setting and then transition into Souhegan? So I think it's twofold, both looking at the student experience and, the tax implications and our voice and choice. That's my feeling on it. Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add from, what did I miss?
I just think that, and I know the timelines are not going to be synchronized, but having looked at the NASDAQ, is it the acronym?
Yeah.
If there's a timeline there with enrollments projected up. Again, those timelines aren't going to be synchronized, but those two projects are going to kind of bounce along in the same direction. So do we need to marry our thought process a little bit and say, okay, this is where we're headed for enrollment. We're going to have to knock out some walls. Then we really knock out some
That
walls
might be an opportune time
Yeah.
to kind of address.
to do it all.
needs with- Right, right.
So I think that's one thing I would say that we need to really take a hard look at.
The scope.
But I agree with your assessment that I need to look at it again to get a better feel
Yeah.
about where I remember it, but not verbatim.
And I remember like there
I'll
was
send you the link.
some discussion of
What's it under committees?
if we're going to add, do we consider adding at a capacity that we could tuition students in?
Right.
And that, there was just a lot of opportunity.
There's a lot of variables,
Yeah, that I don't want to refresh myself. a
but that
little
was
bit.
also discussed as well.
Yeah.
Is the student experience.
Yeah.
What do they not get if they're here?
Right.
Great, but maybe they don't have access to, I'll just throw out power mechanics, woodworking, or other things that we
Sports.
literally
Right.
in sports that we could not facilitate here just by sheer numbers and economics. So that was at the forefront of a lot of the conversation.
Yes, what looks different?
Take some of the pressure off. Your 7th to 8th grade students are committed through June 30th, 2027 down in Pelham. Amherst.
Transportation is gonna go up.
Change that line.
So,
I'm on the committee now.
I know.
So that's where we're at.
Okay.
And I do think, I think it would be wise when you're considering these options to consider our projected enrollment shifts. I think that, kind of combining those two things makes sense. And it would be good to have the committee be mindful that expectation as well. I think that the scope of the project changes a little bit with the new information that we have. So if everyone's okay with it, I'd like to give you all some homework. I'll give myself the same homework, and we can come back next month and give that a little bit more of a dedicated conversation. That works. Okay, and George, I'll connect you with that
Yep,
resource as
thank
well. Okay. Anything else that anyone wants to say about that before we, like, as we're tasking ourselves with this homework, and you want to be mindful of? And I can create a Trello card so that we can see that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are up to our public input time 2 of 2. No pressure.
Yeah, front center. No. No, and I'm gonna try to work with Tom on sourcing snowshoes for the school.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
See how that can work out.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for the meeting. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we go back a little bit to Tom's report? And I know that your information was in there.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, how are you doing? How, I know, I see the numbers kind of fluctuating up and down month to month, but how are we in terms of what's going on in the health end of the school?
Our numbers are down, COVID's down. A couple weeks ago, I think the last board meeting, I said we had had a meeting and the Department of Health no longer required within 24 hours reporting and all the data that went with it. We stopped that completely. So it's pretty simple now. It's just once a week on Fridays, we say how many positive cases we have, and we say absences all the day. So yes, it's been a lot of work taken on this. Yeah, it's nice.
That reminded me of a question about that. I think I saw an email go out that we are no longer requiring negative tests for students to come back when they have a cold.
It's recommended, it's not required.
Are there any concerns about that, or any changes in behavior that you're noticing, or are folks still pretty much trying to be cautious, or?
It varies. Most people are okay. It varies.
There.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any reason for another non-public? or-
We don't, but I have another topic I'd like to raise that was not on the agenda, if it's okay with the board.
Yeah.
So as you may recall, the only word I can think to describe our snow day alignment with our other 2 districts is goofy. This year has been different with our other 2 school districts. So as it stands right now, the Amherst School District is going to finish school on a Wednesday. The Sauhegan Cooperative School District is going to finish on a Friday, that's of that same week, and the Mont Vernon Village School's last day of school will be that following Monday. Is there a better word? Goofy fits.
Yeah.
So because we've only had 2 snow days this year, we're going to suggest that the Mont Vernon Village School finish on that Friday to align with the other 2 schools. Parents with kids in multiple buildings, frankly, school coming back on a Monday and finishing that day has no value. A lot of parents won't send their kids anyway. They're gonna.
I said it's softer.
You said it's softer. A lot of parents are gonna pull the chocks, and the trailer's gonna be halfway to
Yeah.
Colorado by that coming Monday. So with the board's permission, our plan is to adjust the school calendar to end on that Friday. If so, we'll work with our Teachers Association about how that works in terms of their commitments, but essentially it just means that we all wrap up that same day. Christine and Tom have worked extensively to ensure we have the minimum number of instructional hours for the year, no problems that way. Everything squares from a legal and regulatory perspective. We'd probably likely eliminate the late start that week as well. There would have been a late start that Tuesday, which also has limited value. So the board's okay with that. We don't need, I just need shaking heads is good enough for me.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Many parents that I ever are not gonna something anyway.
The value of the day becomes.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Leckler, I think, has one enrichment stipend he wanted to present.
So I apologize. I'm still learning the ropes around the process for the co-curricular approval. We've talked about co-curriculars quite a bit this year. Earlier in the year.
This is the ones tied to NDA contract.
Yeah.
The 10 enrichment.
Right.
Yeah.
So Miss Christie, Christy Valhura, our art teacher, has proposed 2 clubs that she would like to run. Basically, for the last month, 5 weeks of the year or so. One is a mural club, where they are gonna make do a mural, painting type thing, to kind of spice up the hallway a little bit. And then the other is a STEAM Junior Club, which would be kind of a maker, inventor, creative, curiosity kind of thing, focused on STEAM. And Christy and I have had conversations with Christy. She has some ideas of other things that might be of student interest in summer that we're going to talk about at a later date. But for tonight, I was looking for approval on a mural club, and which would be, by the way, 4 meetings, 10 students, grades 4 to 6. And the STEAM Club Junior would be 1st and 2nd grade, also 4 meetings with a max of 10 students.
I go yes, but she's the rest.
Yes, and yes.
Any opposition to that?
No. Is there any reason we're skipping third?
Yeah, you know, for 2nd for the one, and I can talk to Chrissy about that. I'm not exactly sure.
It was just kind of.
Yeah, I see that too. I'll talk to Christy, see if we can add 3rd to one or the other. I think the STEAM would be appropriate to add that grade there. Then we have a lower end number. So, yeah.
Okay, so can we just have a motion to approve those 2 enrichment stipends?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? And thank Ms. Christie for her willingness to do that. That sounds like fun. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other business?
Nothing, no reason for non-public that I'm aware of.
Okay, great. So I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Make a motion. Later.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
If my 3rd grader heard that Miss Christie was doing art after school, I would be in so much trouble. She loves her.
Bye, George.
Don't
Bye, George.
you hear anything back on the- Oh, no, she would have been there. We had a
Right.
today. UNH, it was with you.
Oh, I haven't even seen her yet.